Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I'm your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Uh, I've gotten some interesting feedback from the last episode, and I think that I know some of you were in agreement, like get rid of ID cards. Some of you were wanting us to go a little bit deeper into the conversation. And so instead of having everybody back on and organizing that, even though it wouldn't be that hard for me, I'm going to start going. I'm going to tackle something that I'm looking at right now as an actual problem that goes forward right now in the scope of the game. And the problem realistically is, what do you do with giant and colossal size figures? And I know for some of you, you're like, wait, hold up. Like, we have colossal retaliation. And that's sort of my point. Like, if we remove colossal retaliation, what really happens to the state of giant and colossal figures? And we can look at the past and see, like, ooh, what was those, scenarios, what were those systems like not having colossal retaliation? Even look at some characters that don't, like Juggernaut, for example, is a very good figure design of, hey, we don't have colossal retaliation. We're using a character to be aggressive on the battlefield. It does what it does. It's useful, but it's not overpowering. I know a lot of people would definitely agree that Juggernaut is not an overpowering game mechanic, because he showed up 1 week in Pauper and completely got thrashed the following week. And so much so, I don't think anyone has actually looked at Juggernaut for standard 300 point play because of how bad he got thrashed that second week of Pauper, okay, or Pauper states. So let's take a moment to look at that. And also, I know I'll say this real quick. I am not faulting WizKids for stuff being bad in Pauper because it's a format they don't design for. And I also want to make it clear, this is more exploratorial than it is, look, WizKids sucks, okay? Now note, there might be some, look, WizKids sucks on this, but that's really not the main focus of all this. So, like, if we start off and we look at the fist symbol, there is a lot of figures with the fist symbol, and we're not going to go through every one, but we're going to look at just some classic things that WizKids as a company has done. And I'm not necessarily, like I said, vouching for all of them, but we're looking at them and we're seeing, okay, what can we do? What are we looking at? And so we'll just sort of take some steps forward. All right, so first off, we have Exodia, the Forbidden One. Now, I know most people are used to seeing him at 250 points, but let's sort of start on the problem. Okay, Exodia is 400 points. And he is, 13 attacks, 6 damage. He has all of his abilities. Technically, he would be one of the best ID summoners of all time, because nothing really stops him from summoning anything. He just can't be moved, and once his opponents are on top of him, he's like, look, now I duel too. So yeah, Exodia If we look at him like, okay, why is this constrained to 11 click dial? Because it is. Uh, why doesn't this character have stop clicks? You can argue, well, maybe it wasn't at that time. And I'm like, nope, we have stop clicks. At 400 points and at 11 clicks, he should just have stop clicks. Now, I know some people would say, oh, but he has his damage ability, says he ignores all but one damage dealt to him. Well, I ping him for one, get him to the other click, then Ralph him really hard. Okay? Like, that's it. And there's enough game effects where I could just get rid of that invincible without even trying to outwit him. Okay? So, there you go. All right. Now, realistically, what can we say with a design like this? Well, he's there to hit hard and he can shoot downfield and he can do all these things. But realistically, we know that there are enough game maps that just nerf his range and making him an overpriced piece of crap. So why am I paying 400 points for him and instead hedging my bets, having really good values, and going from there and spending 200 points on support, which I can just make his values way better than they are now for less than 100 points. In Golden Age, I can get him to a 13 attack, 8 damage. And heck, even just using, 5 Billy Batsons, right there, I'm not even spending 100. I'm spending exactly 100 points. So when we start looking at just overall structure, this is the main problem that a majority of WizKids Colossal design figures have. You have the chunk of the dial is what you're getting for the lower point. And then you have these massive point add-ons that are 2 clicks, 3 clicks, 4 clicks. But I'm spending 100, 150, 200, 300 points more. And for whatever magical doobly-doo powers that they use, it's not worth it. Because the lower value is giving me more health, great stats. What was that old Miller Lite commercial? It's like, tastes great, less filling, type feeling. And, oh gosh, I don't know how much that indicates I've been like mind slaved. That's like an old commercial. Anyway, but when you look at that, I think that's the most common problem that we're looking at every one of these colossals, or a majority of these colossals. Look, I'm getting I'm dropping an astronomical amount of investment for a return that is nowhere near that in point scale. I mean, in all honesty, in terms of value, as long as that second click dial for Exodia says 250, the higher dial could be for 1,000. No one's ever going to pay it. And if you said, okay, look, for each one of those clicks, I get 50 more points. I spend 50 more points. Even then, you come close to having some level of value. But even still, when my movement is worse, and the only thing that's better, you could say, is like my attack value, my defense, my damage is up, but my movement overall is worse on my first few clicks, and I'm not even moving. How much survivability do I realistically have, caked into my design? Now, I know other people say, well, Dark Logos, he starts with he ignores all but one damage, thing. But on his higher point dial, but on his lower point dial, he has invincible. So what? So what? Like, there are more than enough game mechanics, like Jenny Sparks, to just get past that. It's like, no special powers for you. Sucks to suck, So let's sort of move down further, and we're looking at older ideas and so we can get like a basis of it. We can look at some things that we could say like, hey, all right, cool. This is close to getting it right. So we can look at Crimson Typhoon now at rookie dial first. You can see like you can push him and you get to his special Trinity Punch later at his 150 dial. But initially he has charge, and then Crimson Typhoon can use Quake. When he does, his damage becomes 3 and is locked. Okay, so he is not good for new Quake, but he's really good for like multi-target Quake. He can do 3 damage to a whole bunch of characters, and he has a very good reach because he's a colossal. Is he super deep? No. Does he need some level of support? Yes. Does he fly? Yes. So there's a lot of utility there, and if you set yourself up, you could, let's just say, play him with Bastion, get him to click 2, mind control him to get into position and whatnot, and then have him do a base attack, and then have him pop off and triple attack. There's things now that can make him work really well. But you can see that he's affordable and usable for the average player. Now, let's go back and we'll see this inflation problem. Okay, so you're looking at Crimson Typhoon at 300 points. Is he useful? And the answer is not really. What am I realistically getting for those double his point value? Oh, impervious? Okay, 6 damage, 12 attack, higher movement. Okay, great. Is that better than just playing another Crimson Typhoon at 150? And the answer is no, it's not. In all objective ways, I'm getting more health, more damage out there, more action economy. It's just way better. And so when we're looking like at these 4 clicks, where's the value? Where's the value at? And it's not there. And so this is where the point formula starts to break down. And I realistically think this way, is that when you start having the point formula increasing cost exponentially by your stat numbers, and then increasing it up by your number of clicks, and that winding up that first click is a good chunk of your investment, then I think this is where the formula starts failing multi-dialed characters, and even more in particular fails characters with high stat points starting out. Now, do we know that a good chunk of this is just BS in terms of point chunking? Yes, because we can look at multitudes of ways of bringing down the cost of a figure, and that character has high stats. And the prime example of this is Danger Room Magneto, because Danger Room Magneto has massive stats, but he has a trait that makes those stats a lot more limited. But no matter what, he has access to that attack value. The only thing that's functionally restricted is, he can't lay out fully his damage. But functionally, if Magneto wanted to, that Danger Room Magneto wanted to, using Ranged Combat Expert on every attack, he could have a 14 attack. He'll still only do 1 damage, but he'll have a 14 attack. I can combine that with Force Blast from multitudes of sources, and now he'll do that 1 damage, okay, and then knock a character off Elevation, which could do 2 damage or 1 damage, or knock him into the wall and do 1 damage. So is that character really truthfully locked into dealing 1 damage while having an astronomically high attack value? And the answer is no. So when we start looking at colossals, there's other things to keep them chunky, keep them emergent as a threat, keep them as this big pressure juggernaut, shock trooper, while also like leveling out some of their problems. Okay, so let's go and well, I'm gonna leave Pacific Rim alone because Pacific Rim in and of itself is 15 different times of fun and stupid at the same time. So let's go look to something a little old, oh, but for most classic players, they're going to remember this figure. So we're going to look at 200 point Shuma Gorath. Now, 200 points Shuma Gorath, again, sort of reproves my point that we can have good opening stats, we can have good design, we can have high range, and some degree of control, balance, and utility, all in this one character. Now, I know I will say in the past I hated Shuma Gorath. I still, to a degree, think he's a bit BS, but mainly because of what Mole Man did to Shuma Gorath. Now, I know a lot of people would say no one would even think about Shuma Gorath if it wasn't for Mole Man, and I really can't lie on that. A lot of people wouldn't. But at the same time, Shuma Gorath shows a lot of utility in one piece, while at the same time not being completely a pushover. But unfortunately, as we'll see, is like it goes back and it suffers from this. I have more dials, and now my point costs are stupid. Okay, so let's look at Shuma Gorath at 200 first. Shuma Gorath at 200 is 7 clicks deep, which is respectable for the time, and starts off with impervious, drops down to invulnerability, then goes to toughness, has 2 clicks of prob at the beginning and the end of this segment of dial, phasing, so no movement attack, 12 attack, 18 defense, 10 range, Mystic's team ability, power cosmic. Emerge through your greatest champion at the beginning of the game. Choose the highest point character as long as that character is not KO'd. At the beginning of each of your turn, heal Shuma Gorath 1 damage. So he has some level of sustainability, sort of inflating those number of clicks that can be used, while at the same time, allowing him to colossal push like a beast. Then you have Dark God of the Cancerverse. Shuma Gorath can use Flurry and Plasticity. When this character is given an action that includes a close combat attack, all squares within range of 5 and line of fire considered adjacent. So he could just go to town and wop people. All right. So that's pretty good. Now he has Tentacle Attack. Shuma Gorath can use Incapacitate as a free action. When he does, he targets up to 5 characters within 5 squares in line of fire that have a line of fire that have action tokens. So it's a little bit limiting, but it's sort of flavoring. Okay, so you can there's a lot of different setups that you have right in there in this character. Now, could you just say, look, ID, call in, blast that dude down to regen? Yes, you actually could in the modern scape. But we're also sort of, extending the conversation from the last episode, saying, okay, what happens when we don't have these ID cards? What happens when we don't have the instant access to this utility? Immediately, you can start seeing a character like Shuma Gorath actually is pretty useful. He's not immediately gimped out. But then when we go up 1 power level, 1 dial level, what happens? Boom. Shuma Gorath is 600 points. So now you pretty much just doubled the amount of points you're tripling the amount of points of Shuma Gorath's worth. And it's ridiculous. It's straight up ridiculous. So For example, let's look at our starting values with 600 point Shumagorath versus 200 point Shumagorath. All right, so we have 14 movement versus 11. Okay, cool. 12 versus 12, but we have Pulse Wave. Okay, so I still don't have movement attack. 19 defense versus 18. That's not that big of a deal. Then we have a 5 damage versus a 5 damage. So I somewhat net out the same. You could say, like, oh, look, but Dark Logos, look at how many clicks of health we have. And I'm like, well, yeah, we do have a lot of clicks. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. We have 8 clicks. Now, here's the question. Is 400 points worth 8 more clicks when I can spend 400 points and just put in moment? So then we start to see the problem. Or 400 points in mystical characters, or 2 other Shumagoraths. You know, like, there's a huge decline in value. So then we go and we look at the 1,000 point dial. And with the 1,000 point dial, we're functionally again adding on the same amount of click numbers again. Now, if we're looking, okay, what's the big difference between the 1,000 points and the 600 points? All right, so I got 2 more movement on my first click, 1 more attack, 1 more defense, 1 more damage. So you could say there is somewhat of an upgrade, but I don't have any movement attack. I don't really have a lot of utility. Do I have the ability of sort of dealing with the characters around me? Just a bit. But overall, as a threat, I would argue that this is not it. This is just saying if I slap more dial on it, then the cost is exponential. And I think this is where the poor dial design starts coming in heroclix. Now, some of you would say, but Dark Logos, this is the Dark God Shumagorath. He is a threat that, you know, tons of heroes come and fight. What is going on? Why is this bad? And I would come back and I would just say, from a design perspective, having played this game competitively, and even if you want to say this is just like a mob in a campaign or a final boss in a campaign, yes, I am studying up on role-playing stuff for making RPGs for my students. So I've been listening to a lot of DMing stuff and game design stuff lately. So these things are sort of like in the more forefront of my mind. What at 1,000 points, what level raid boss is Shumagorath? Like, what challenge level rating is he? And I would argue that he would be no more than 1 or 2 more challenge rating than actually no more than 1 challenge rating from his low point dial to his, you know, middle point dial to his high point dial. They're the middle and high point dial are pretty much the equivalent, the same amount of challenge. So here's why. When I equate that with a hero force, now if I send a 300 point hero force against a 600 point Shumagorath, oh yeah, it's challenging. Could a 300 point force take on an unassisted 600 point Shumagorath? No problem. No problem. Enough stealth and psychic blast, team negation, hell, freaking Kobik right now would just rip apart Shumagorath. Like there's even enough things classically that would be able to take on 600 point Shumagorath. Now, would you alone? Now, would you say then that reflects the state of scaling in that the game is only meant to scale to 300 to a degree? If the game is only meant to scale to 300, then you have to admit that everything over 300 is just BS. Like, it's whose line is it anyway? Like, we're spitballing and guessing. We don't really know if this is valuable. We're just telling you that it is. And in reality, it's not. It's not. There's no multi attack realistically um, to give you that mobility that you need. Now you have flurry, which is nice, but it's limited in range, and you're expecting your opponents to come to you. Now, old Giant Reach would not have allowed you to hit through stealth. Now, current Giant Reach does. So that's sort of like an upgrade to make, colossal figures a bit better. But like as you can see, it's just a whole bunch of fluff. Now, let's sort of you know move on down. And I'm not going to look at any of the modern stuff just quite yet. And I would say modern is stuff in like really like the last 3 years. I want to go down to probably a figure or some of the figures that I'm just like, yeah, this is just overkill. Like these characters are actually way too good, and it goes back to them hyper tweaking to sell product at a higher point cost, and then trying to get people to invest in. Um, where I would make the argument with WizKids is if you're going to have colossal giant figures, all of them should have immediate value and utility, so that I want to keep buying. Not, oh, I have these, I've collected them all. Now I stop. I want to be like the Sentinels. Like I want to keep getting Sentinels. I want to keep, oh, I got a Galactus. Okay, great. So I don't need 5 Galactuses because they're unique, but I can sell them on eBay, get some money back, so I can go back and try to get more giant robots, more Sentinels, more Frost Giants, stuff like that because they're fun. All right, so let's look at Galactus from Galactic Guardians, and I would compare Galactus versus big box Galactus, but realistically, I'm not going to do that. Now, this Galactus, unfortunately, was dealing with a time where they couldn't see over elevated terrain. Him and Master Mold all really got shafted. And I would argue that the improvement in how colossal figures operate, if we had them at that time, then a lot of figures that people really didn't look at would have been more useful. So let's look at 300 point Galactus. He has a 12 range, he has a 13 attack, he has 6 damage, he has 19 defense, impervious. He has Galactus can use the Mystics team ability and can't be targeted by exploit weakness and mind control. Okay, that's not bad. So from jump, he doesn't have move and attack, he doesn't have multi attack. He has a 10-click dial, which is sort of respectable, not the best, but it's sort of respectable. And he's laying down damage. Now, can he deal with stealth figures? Not really. But that should be sort of like a challenge for dealing with him. But oh well, you hit Galactus down. Now he has Pulse Wave. Now he's Pulse Waving everybody that's within 6. So now your stealth Batmans are all getting hit for 1. Maybe they're not that good anymore. Or he's in a position where he could possibly only be single targeting Pulse Wave. Now he's single targeting Pulse Wave maybe 4 or 5 damage or 6 damage. Or he has a 13 attack when he Pulse Waves, which pretty much is almost an auto hit for that era. Right now, you're doing good. You're doing good. So all of a sudden we start seeing that, oh, if you're clumped up, I'm going to energy explode you. So there's an advantage. You get too close to me in stealth, I'm going to pulse wave you. You have you've hit me some more, your big guy's still standing. Now I can focus in on, you hit that big guy for 2 or 3, or I can target a whole bunch of other guys and then blast them off of top click. Or off of their current damage reduction click with impervious. I didn't do a lot of damage. I didn't KO anything this turn, but I was able to do something. Now, this is the E dial. Now, if we go to the D dial, what happens? Boom. We have more clicks. We've gone from 10 clicks total to 16 clicks total. All right. So with this, what do we get? We get multi-attack. Okay? All of a sudden, we get multi-attack. whereas previously we didn't have it. All right, so now we functionally have, we haven't doubled our health, but we have doubled, the amount of actions that we can do. And we have a herald, and we have access to the herald dial, and we have you shall not harm my master. Whenever Galactus takes damage, place a revenge token on this card. At the beginning of your turn, remove all revenge tokens and give your herald that many action tokens, that many actions as free actions this turn. Okay, so you have the ability to sort of power yourself up. All right, now when we stack all that together, we can start to see, yes, I've doubled the amount of points, and my health hasn't increased that much, but now I've added on additional game elements with the Herald. I've added on additional utility with the multi-attack. And you're functionally saying to your opponent, look, come at me, bro. And you can bring your full force at me. And you can do a lot of damage really quick if you're able to hit me that hard. Okay? But if you fail to kill me and you landed 4 or 5 attacks, understand that I can not only attack you twice with my stats that I have, but my Herald is also going to attack that many times for free, plus still standard attack, or take that many actions for free. And you could just be like, what happens if my Herald has access to support? Wow, like just being able to support once creates a lot of problems for your team. So I would even say, it's like, look, we have 600 point Galactus here with a Herald mechanic baked in. So he has a minion. And now at 600 point Galactus is far more scarier than 1,000 point Shumagorath. He's far more scarier than I would argue that, Knifehead is, from Pacific Rim. Now, here's another, if we go up again and we go from the 600 point Galactus to the 900 point Galactus, you still have the same abilities. You have way more dial. You have 20 clicks of dial. Now, for the added, 4 clicks is the 300 points really worth it? Yes. For the dial that you get at 900 points, I would argue yes. Because you're at a 14 attack, 7 damage with the multi-attack, triple target. That starting click alone with a 12 movement is worth it. You still have the Herald function. While the Herald function is not packing the max punch that it could be, because of the point rank up, the fact that you can sort of start the game and, move out, carry your Herald. Let's just say your Herald has like prob and perplex on the first click, or prob and outwit, or some sort of I negate shape change type thing, or your Herald is like Banshee class from Daredevil, and all of a sudden you're just like, all right, I place Banshee here, the aura's here, I light you up for 7, you're dead. Thank you, have a nice day. Oh, you have all those Colossal Retaliators. I target all 3 of your Colossal Retaliators. They're dead. Now we're going to fight. Let's go. And then you're like, oh, well, okay, we're going to fight now. And then a lot of players wouldn't know what to do. So, yeah, at 900 points, it's worth it. Now, if we go to the 1,500 points, I'm like, nah, this isn't so good. But you are adding in the Devour dial at 1,500, and then at 1,800, you're adding in the Hunger That Dooms Worlds, the Devour dial, and the Cosmic Power cosmic balance dial. You have all your dials together. And you still have the Herald and the necessary evil of this universe only on your 300-point dial. Okay, so overall, like when you get to this point, I would just argue at 2,000 points, like no, Galactus sucks because your Herald isn't scaling, which is a problem. Um, because your Herald is still 150 points, and even more so at this point range, realistically, I could say it's like while he's a like Elder God type thing, um, type situation, he can be out mechanicked in the game. Like he can just be completely locked down from a multitude of mechanics to just stop him from doing anything. Whereas, truth be told, he really caps out in just being a beast at like 900. He's just like, look, I roll up, you take 7. That's dead. That's off the map. I started the game and I deleted, 150 points or 200 points of your build just immediately. Or I went and got rid of all your support guys, or I got rid of your 2 core support guys in one go. Now you have to fight me straight up and slug through my impervious. You have to slug through all of my damage reduction with my own invulnerability and understand that my Herald could heal me back up. And for every click of damage that you deal me, you are only powering up my Herald. So are you going to ignore me or just go after my Herald? So there are multitudes of like very good game design in this Galactus. Now, if we're trying to say, is he balanced for his points? He's more so balanced primarily because he has a minion effect. And I think this is the main problem that goes in with a majority of Colossals, is that are these Colossals either in the minion or boss category? Are they in the minion or boss category? There are very few Colossals in comics that don't have minions or minion effects. Like Brainiac is primarily like one of the prime examples. Is he shows up, the Skull Ship shows up, and the Skull Ship starts turning people into Brainiac drones, or he starts converting the planet into Brainiac drones. Brainiac is the Borg. He operates like the Borg, or he spawns out tons of drones. So when we look at Brainiac, for example, Brainiac or the Brainiac Skull Ship should have a minion mechanic, not the go around and I get the ships and la di dang da. I'm awesome. Look at me now. I can get more powers. He should just the Brainiac Skull Ship should be like, this turn I make this. This other turn I make this. Now you get that with the slave dial, with the Brainiac slave or the second Brainiac, which is not bad. But you can definitely see the problems that comes in of while Brainiac Skull Ship was an effective character, I think Goku, the best he did was top 4 at Rock World Cup. Top 4, top 8, I forgot which still proves that it's solid, but as many times as I've piloted it, I haven't won a tournament with it. And I would argue, like, between Goku and myself, I think we were like the only two really doing it and having any level of success. And even when I was having levels of success with it, it was primarily because the Ultron drones were backing me up like big time. When you start talking about being able to summon in an ID character or bust down walls so that I can move around, and then coming back and double tapping in the same turn because of those mechanics and utilizing whatchamacallit. I forgot. Oh yeah, entities. Yeah, utilizing entities. It it was beneficial. Just being able to heal the skull ship up one click for free just because I'm adjacent to it with the Indigo uh, entity was great. All right, so let's look at another broke character that's actually good, or two others, because I'm going to look at Master Mode. Then we're going to start looking at the the newer figures. But I want to look at Zoran the Tester, and I know some people that know me more classically understand when I say Zoran the Tester is all sorts of manner of BS. They know that firsthand, and I would make the argument, and this is the first time I'm going to make this, is that 300 point Zoran the Tester is trash, while he would be a very good minion. He would not be a very good boss or some character that could just sort of hold his own. You look at 600 point Zoran the Tester in like 1,000 point game. He starts creating problems, and even 600 point Zoran the Tester in a 600 point game can start causing problems if he's an unknown. So let's go into why he can be a problem. So first and foremost, at the beginning of the game, roll a d6 and click the testing dial that many times. Then roll a 2d6, okay, 3 times, and turn the testing dial that many times and record the click landed on after each roll. These 3 clicks correspond to the test Zoran will perform this game. For each failed test, Zoran the Tester may deal 2 unavoidable damage, divided as he chooses among opposing characters. Boom. Automatically, Zoran just says, look, you're not meeting my test. You take damage, son. Screw you. Take damage, son. Screw you. Okay, so if your opponent is really unfortunate, you can start the game. It's like, oh, you have a group? You failed a test? Okay, boom, your 2 walking wood are gone. Or your group's gone. And when your walking wood is gone. Or 2 of your colossal retaliators are gone. Okay, you failed another test. Okay, your big guy is no longer on top click, so he loses that cool special power. Failed another test. I gimped your medic. Let's go. Okay, now if we look at the test, a majority of these tests really, like 90% of the teams are not going to pass these tests unscathed. Okay, so a character can use Smoke Cloud on their opening click. Nope. Force Blast on their opening click. Nope. Battle Fury on the opening click. A little bit more predominant because of the meta now. Energy Explosion on their opening click. Nope. Mind Control, more predominant, so that has the ability to pass. At least 5 different team abilities. Nope. At least 5 characters of 50 points or less. Oh, hell no. Not right now. Not right now. At least 5 characters with unique rings. Nope. That's, oh gosh, even classically, that's a hard one to pull off. A character that can use enhancement on his opening click, maybe. Leadership on his opening click, more than likely this is a pass. Like, classically, not so much of a pass, but modern meta, yes. Support on their opening click, no. Hell no. Defend on their opening click, hell no. Okay, so a majority of these tests, a person could fail because you can't pass all of them. You know, even in a 600-point game, no one can pass all of these tests because efficiency would start making powers like Force Blast on board be inefficient. Smoke Cloud on starting click on board as inefficient because you can pick up, relics or special objects and other things along that nature to do those functions for you, reducing overall point cost. So Zoran the Tester comes in, even though he doesn't have minions, he's like, look, I'm the man. I am here to judge the value of your species in the cosmos. And now I'm going to wreck you because you're not worthy to even fight me. So let's now fight because you're below me. And that's very, very threatening from the beginning. And when we start looking at how threatening this is, uh, so much so that game design was like, wait, we can't just give him consistent, impervious, then down to invuln, then down to toughness. They sort of sprinkle it around. They go impervious and vulnerability, some impervious and vulnerability, then toughness, then regen. Okay, all right, now's our time to get him. He doesn't have multi attack, which is, oh no, he does. Zoran the Tester can use multi attack and can't be targeted by exploit weakness or in mind control. Yep. Yep. So he's going to tag that butt twice, but he doesn't have that 6 or 7 damage that Galactus had. He doesn't have a Herald. He doesn't need it because he comes out the gate and he's like, I punk you because I'm better than you. Okay. And then he has the Analyze the Specimens that Zoran the Tester can use Incapacitate. When he does, after actions resolve, each hit character is dealt damage equal to the number of action tokens on them. If this was penetrating, it would be better. But more hilariously, I used this with Stunning Blow. And do you want to talk about lame? Oh gosh, I pissed so many people off. It's one of the main reasons they never allowed us to do special powers and feats again. Is I did like armor piercing and Stunning Blow. Yeah, you multi-target this with Stunning Blow. Yeah, sucks to suck. But in Precision Strike, yeah, it's like I put that on you, and then it's like, oh yeah, you're going to take 1 damage no matter what from my Analyzed Specimens. But even if you don't feed him up with and you just play him as he is, that's strong. Landing once per game as a free action, you may have Zoran the Tester gain the boot symbol for the rest of the game. When you do, Zoran the Tester may use Quake as a free action to target all opposing characters that can't use the flight ability. That's map. That's just global. Okay, so right there is another cool element. Now, this should be lower cost because it's eating up several clicks of your dial. Like, way too many clicks of your dial. But, I think that should have been a trait, not necessarily a special power, and you could have sprinkled in some more prob and impervious or something to make this a little bit better. But overall, you can see Zoran the Tester is a lot more balanced, a lot more design, where it's like, okay, if I go to 600 points, I have a reason of looking at him seriously. Now, when we start looking at his higher point values at 800, okay, we have 20 clicks versus 600. Oh no, we have 20 clicks at 602. So we don't have any increased health. We do have that increase in damage reduction. So yes, you could side blast him, but if you could, balance him out and have something where you can't target characters with side blast, or you just pair him with the new White Queen, where it's like character, you can't target him unless you're within 6 squares of him. Now all of a sudden he's even more scary. But now you have to sort of really go through that damage, and with him with Outwit and the 13 attack and the multi attack, he's still just saying, attack 1, I hit you with Psychic Blast for 6 to your main guy that has Psychic Blast. Is he alive? Okay. Multi-target, hit him again and kill him. So now you have to slug through all of those things if you survive my test and you went unscathed because I killed your Colossal Retaliation or killed off your pre-made Pog army, all these other things. Okay, so at 800 points, we're still seeing that utility. We're seeing less clicks of that dumb boot power. We're seeing more utility power sprinkled in. All right, so when we go into 2A, we're at 1400. We're mixing dials. And then when we go to his main dial, which I think should just really be 1, you're seeing the mix of the decision dial, the contemplation dial, and the arrival dial, like all together. And you still have testing. So you have a chance if you use the last chance to prove yourself worthy when this power is first revealed after actions resolve. roll 2d6 and turn the testing dial that many times. If your opponent's force can pass that test on their current clicks instead of opening clicks, all opposing characters heal one. But then again, it's still a chance to just punk them again. Whereas in my belief, you should have just you shouldn't give the heal option, because at that point value, you're starting to be outpaced. But you can see Zoran the Tester is functionally a high level threat the entire time except at his 300 points, which they did to balance him out to play in a 300 point format in an era where you had Sentry Void. I think Sentry Void was out then. Yeah, like he died to Sentry Void. He's a joke. But Sentry Void could be scared of him at 600 points and beyond. So, real briefly, we're going to talk about Master Mode. I know this just seems like a retrospective completely. But I want to emphasize things that WizKids has done well in the past, so that we can sort of go into the future and look at some of the more modern stuff. So, Master Mode, low dial. For the time with the Infinity Gauntlet and several other things, he had potential. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't see over multiple levels of elevation to draw a line of fire. If he could, he probably would have been... I know from my perspective, I would have taken him to Worlds and wrecked some people with him. But you couldn't. He had the Retribution virus and the advanced Sentinel Maker, because this is one of the few characters that actually could use multi-attack at low point dial. So Master Mode can use multi-attack and can't be targeted by opponent's Mind Control, Psychic Blast, or Perplex. So you have to hit him with Exploit Weakness, which makes him a little bit harder to deal with. Retribution virus. Mark each character that caused Master Mode to take 2 or more damage from a single attack. A character begins your turn. At the beginning of your turn, Master Mode deals 1 penetrating damage to the marked characters and each other opposing character adjacent to them. Then remove that mark. Each character can't be dealt more than 1 damage per turn by this power. Okay, great. Again, he has things built in to say, look, I'm a boss. Come at me. Here are my minions. Oh, you hurt me instead of dealing with my minions? Here's this effect. Could I also heal up my guy? Heal up Master Mode? Yes, I can. But I don't have a ton of minions, but I do have some. Oh, he wiped out my minions. Okay, now let's go fight. All right, so this is really good game design, because you hurt him. There's a negative effect on you. All right, but then at the same time, he's like, I'm doing okay damage. I'm not doing killer damage. The damage is like, I'm hoping that I can 1-shot or 2-shot a character early on and maybe use the multi-attack to get over on some people. And with low mobility, after you start tagging him, he can't just automatically get away in all situations. So you can start outpacing him, leading to the KO, which makes him balanced. All right, so why don't we see more characters like him? That's a really good question. Because with the state of the game in hypermobility, all right, moving out 10 squares that first turn and then tagging somebody, you're like, I have a problem with that because that's full map reach. And then I would say, sir, have you not paid attention to heroclix in the last 4 years? We've had full map reach in multiple ways. And game design has not said that's a bad thing. And I'm talking about full map reach, and then I unload on you. Whether you want to talk about Sam Cap, or you want to talk about Doc Ox, or you want to talk about being able to free action, summon blank, summon the Pog, do this, that, or the other. The ability to full map reach either has to be admitted as a complete problem that needs to be resolved from a game design perspective, so that positioning and opening salvos and actually getting downfield is a threat and something that you have to think about. And while him in range and other things like that. Or you could just admit Go where you want and let's go. Let's fight. If that's the case, there is nothing wrong with Master Mold using multi attack, or having a character designed like Master Mold to use multi attack, move out a decent distance, and then just salvo you. There's nothing wrong. There is literally no difference between the two actions. Okay? From a tactical perspective. So if we're pretending, oh, but it's a colossal. So what? It's still a figure on the board. The only advantage that it has is improved targeting, see over characters that are smaller than it, and to melee punch into stealth 3 away. And to decide if you're going to do a ranged or a melee attack, even if you're based. That's it. You can say, oh, but look, Dark Logos, he can be outwitted. Master Mold can be outwitted. Like, yeah, he can. That makes it balanced. He's not power cosmic. He has Endom. You can outwit that. He could, so if we start scaling up, we get the introduction at 600 points. Now he can start bringing in the drones. He can start making sentinels. And for me, this is the part where I actually start to really enjoy Master Mold, because he is fully acting like a boss. He's fully acting like a boss, like a boss mechanic. And you're summoning in, low point drones, and you're summoning in 50 point drones. Then, you're building and ramping up to get up to that magical mark where you can start summoning in like your big boy Toys R Us exclusive sentinels. You're like, oh snap, it's on now. And even now at 50 points, calling in a Cyclops Sentinel or two is really scary. It's really, really, really scary. Now, we don't have Sentinel keyword at this time, which I sort of wish it did. But that's why I think it's Sentinel Factory Master Mold. Give Master Mold a power action, turn the factory dial 1 click. Use the Sentinel Factory manufacturer ability as a free action. Sentinel manufacturer, give Master Mold a power action. If your force on the map, except for Master Mold, is less than 300 points, is less than 300 points, you may make a character on the map adjacent to Master Mold. The place character name must include Sentinel. It must possess the robot keyword. And placed characters' point values must be less than or equal to the current number on the factory dial. So, there's a ton of stuff that you can do, even with the Wild Sentinels, bringing those pogs in, those were not bad either. So, all of a sudden, let's just say I decide I'm just going to spam a bunch of Cyclops Sentinels. As long as I meet that prerequisite, then I'm fine. Because nothing has really changed that much. Yes, in terms of the battle of attrition, my opponent could have gone through, 200 points of my guys, but if it hadn't reached the resolution of the game, I'm like, boom, 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 boom. Let's bring out more. And I can ramp up, and I can start ramping it up in terms of, yes, my opponents are beating down these Sentinels and scoring them. But at the same time, I also have to be cautious in how many Sentinels I let die. While I could bring out 150, so I can eventually bring out a 150 point beast or a 300 point beast, is it just wiser for me to bring out, several 100-point Sentinels? Or is it wiser for me to just keep cranking out generic Sentinels? Or is it wiser for me to crank out maybe 1 or 2 Cyclops Sentinels and then just crank out generic Sentinels? Or crank out a Tri-Sentinel or 2 on retail just to keep punishing my opponent. Like, these are critical thoughts in which the player, the active player, is not just the player, but is also sort of a DM. And I think that's one thing where I think pog mechanics in this game start to become attractive, is in the sort of same effect. You become a micro DM when you play. You're managing within the confines of actions, so many actions, but you're bombarding your opponent with the ability to say, I can maximize my action economy each turn, while I cannot do as much damage as you, or I can't be as efficient as you, as the opponent, in terms of doing X or Y or Z mechanics, but just doing my one mechanic efficiently, or maximizing my action economy efficiently each turn, I can sort of overwhelm you with numbers and things like that. So let's sort of before I wrap up, let's sort of look at the problem facing and the modern colossal, and why we really need to like take the good and bad lessons from game design in the past and sort of look at it. So let's look at a good example of a very well designed figure, and that is Giant Girl, the main set Giant Girl from AI. And the reason why she's a very well designed character is that she is a scalable minion the entire time. She can get into the fray while it costs a power action. She also has the ability, she functionally has like a devour ability. Okay, I kill you, now I power up. I kill you, now I power up. I kill you, now I power up. Oh, okay, the game's over because I've killed everything. And putting in effort to kill her is not impossible. She doesn't have a stop click. And I know some people would say, it's Dark Logos, how do you not have a problem with Giant Girl, but you have a problem with Wendigo? And the issue is that Giant Girl, while she can get more chunky, she also can just be knocked off real quickly. Not only could she be knocked off real quickly, she also suffers another problem. Which is that she can't do multiple actions in a turn, whereas under the right situations, Wendigo can. And I think that is a huge misstep with a 15-point Wendigo versus a 10 or a 20-point Giant Girl. Like, they're not in the same power class. So we're looking back at a scalable character. Are they minions? We can see this in common Avengers teams. I have 4 Giant Girls, period. They're minions. 4 Hawkeye, 4 Cap, 4 Star Fox, for all these other figures that I have. They're minions. Their whole purpose on the field is to frustrate my opponent. If they make a big play, yes. If they die, okay, I lost a minute amount of points for my main force, my crack team of Avengers to do what they do, or my celebrity team, whatever it is. Okay, so this is actually a really good issue or really good design of saying, like, look, all right, instead of having these big, huge chunk increases, why don't we just say each click I can decide to pay for? Okay, so that's and we can keep the stats sort of steady. We can keep the mechanics sort of consistent, and then we can just decide, like, okay, like, yeah, we could get full on stupid if we wanted to, but we're not, because it's not cost efficient for these reasons. But for these other reasons, I really need specifically a 130 point figure. Boom. This is the perfect figure to slip that right in. And it just fits like a glove. Like, okay, oh yeah, I can still sort of power up. I have a good starting stat. I can take a power action and I can do this, and if they beat on me, it doesn't matter because the following turn I'm going to do blank, and I can keep doing blank until I die, just causing problems for my opponent. So those are options that are on the table. But again, we have a restriction. The only way that she can heal it or heal it back up, or you could just say like gain mass, is through a KO. So that is a great development in terms of design. But then we also see massive falters when we get to characters like in the same set, the Hulk. So the Hulk at 150 has a lot of great things caked into him from the movie set. I forgot which movie set Hulk it was. But you have a lot of those elements sort of built into him on a lower scale because of the lower point value and the less amount of clicks. But when we look at it, it's like, can this character realistically carry their weight in the current format? And at 150, the answer is no. And as you scale up all the way to 350, here's this big, huge Hulk. You don't have a reason really to play it. Now, you can say, oh, look, but Dark Logos is an uncommon rarity, so it should be a little bit more downscaled, blah, 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 blah. And I really do think that when it comes to Colossals, one of the major problems in the rarity scale that, being reflected on them, I realistically think that it needs to be a tweak to like a 0.5. Like, okay, you're a Colossal or a giant figure in these sets. You're an uncommon. You're like sort of like a prime uncommon in terms of that power level. And then cap it, like once you get to your super rares, you keep them at super rare status power. I would encourage WizKids not to introduce the prime system any more into Colossals than what they have. Just do not create any more Colossal primes. Not necessarily from a collection perspective, but when we start hitting that super rare prime, that strength value is just absurd. It's just absurd. And if we're trying to make Colossals or multi-base figures viable and good and looked at, I understand you say, well, what's wrong? The prime version, it's super great. For the point scaling that we're doing in the game right now, I don't see that being the best utility. Even if you tell me to look at Prime Storm, I would say it's like she's a very good piece. I collect her because, not only because she Colossal Retail, but also, I collect Black heroclix. But if it wasn't for the fact that she was a Black heroclix, would I really be shelling out, the $90 on eBay to buy her? Do I really have to have her? Is she really carrying her weight, not just as a Colossal Retaliator, but as a figure and just overall dial utility? And I would be like, no, because I haven't really had a reason to play her at her full dial or at her higher dials. And even if you said, look, Dark Logos, we're going back with the premise of getting rid of the ID cards, is Storm still good? And I would say she's a very good character, but still, even with all her little free BS that she gets, it's not enough to utilize her as a major hero character or part of a party mindset in terms of design at 300 or higher points. There's a lot of things to be concerned about. When we start looking at this, new mindset of like, there's IDs are gone. Colossal Retaliation, we're phasing out Colossal Retaliation. Let's just look at it. How are we growing and improving from, this point on? And I think there's some realistic problems for us to start looking at that just become evident, like glowingly evident. So I digress. Let's keep going back at good utility game design. Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl. You can either be a fighter or you can be a support piece. You can't be both. But you have the option of, okay, I have 2 tokens on me. I'm on my last click. I really don't want a colossal push. I'd rather just outwit. Okay, great. Lockjaw's on click two. With one action token, I want the incapacitate. Okay, great. Um, I'm going in to charge, shock and awe, full on, with an attack of 9 with blades. All right, great. Okay, my opponent blew my character up, my 50-point character up. Does this trigger some other secondary effect from another character, or can I use like Res Lantern and like bring her back on the bring Devil Dinosaur Moon Girl back on the 11 attack click with blades, and then just let them rip into somebody. Like all of these things start adding up, and they add up very quickly. And I think they start creating problems for most people because the overall design of it starts to become a little bit more problematic, because like, okay, I'm investing in this character and I know they're going to die because they're not that deep. I would say with Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl, make them a little bit more chunky for 50 points. Go ahead and make them 6 clicks. You've done it for enough DC Rebirth characters. You know, make the opponents work a little bit. Yeah, they can still be outwitted. They can still be outwitted. That's fine. But you want some pressure. You want to be like, oh, that's something big coming towards me. I need to have this mindset that this is a threat. It's going to take some hits, you know. And you should be able to visually see it. I have a T-Rex coming towards me. I doubt a Kamehameha blast from Ryu is going to take it out in one shot, even if I really concentrate and aim for the mouth. Okay, so sorry, not Kamehameha, it's a Hadouken. Sorry, I crossed the nerd streams. I apologize. Okay, so we're looking at that. Another, again, well-designed character. Unfortunately, this is a title character. Wasp, part of the Avengers. 50 points. Like I said before, a little bit chunky. Has a little bit of mechanic and controlly elements and utility elements built into her. Okay? She's sort of like a lieutenant level character. Great. All right. Giganto Namor. Primarily super useful because it's a useful minion, design that we could see more of. It's hard to deal with. Okay, boom. So what? You outwit the defense and hit it for 5. Stop click, dude. You have to attack it again. So when I'm looking at limited action economy, I have now forced my opponent to waste actions, targeting a low point target that has the ability to either deal massive AoE damage, moderate AoE damage, or a lot of single target damage. And I think then we have some beautiful utility back in there. And I think another character, again, well designed, I feel from the set, probably needs to be tweaked on the stat side so he himself is useful, is Ego Prime. Now, Ego Prime is 75, in my opinion, has a lot of utility caked into him, a lot of creative things built into him, but unfortunately, because of his short dial at 75 points and his low defenses, and for some dumb reason he has close combat expert, he sort of doesn't cut it. If I was to revisit Ego Prime, I would make his range 4. I would up his attack to 10 or 11. 11 on his first click, maybe 10 on his second click. Then give him one more click if you really want to take away the close combat expert, and just give him full dial perplex. Take away the plasticity. Keep the poison, keep the combat reflexes, keep the defenses the same, add one more click, and then just perplex on, first click. Or even if you want to say, for efficiency's sake, take away perplex on first click, make it something that you want to push towards onto click 2, even though that would sort of suck just a bit. And then use that, and then still create these massive amount of ego pogs. I think there's a whole lot of creativity and utility there that I don't think a lot of people tapped. I've seen a few people tapping my friend Jacob Payne. He played ego and did pretty good at a WKO with him. So and that actually inspired me to. If you go look on Happy Little heroclix, I have a Starro build, which was sort of inspired from Jacob Payne playing ego. So anyway, but we start seeing these like, okay, there's a reason why for me to look at it. So if we go look back at Ego Prime and I go from 75 to 150, am I really getting this upgrade? And my argument is no. I'm better off just with another Ego Prime. Okay? Realistically, I'm just better off with another Ego Prime. All right? Doing the exact same thing than I am of getting these additional clicks. You could say, like, oh, but Edward, it gives you more time once you get hit to heal. Like, no, in the current format, this dude's going to get burst down. Okay? You don't have any invincible. This part is bad. Okay? We scale up again. Okay? And we are looking at 150. I'm sorry, 250. Okay, at the vet. Okay, cool. This is better. Still, is it worth the 13 clicks? The answer is no. You're the minions, going back to the Galactus problem, that you are generating are not enough to cover you. Now, if this scaled up and then said, okay, if I pay 75 points, I get 6. If I pay 150 points, I get 10. If I pay 250 points, I get 12. And if I pay the full 350 points, I get unlimited. Boom. Now this character is worth something. Now this character is a huge problem, for my opponents. Now I'm actually looking at him like, what do those ego minions do? Oh, they're melee and they have super strength and they don't have a great movement, but they can sort of zone. Well, I'm sort of destroying the map, so I functionally have to use these characters as little walls, but, I'm in a land with no colossal retaliation now. So what's the threat? What's the real threat of engaging these pogs? Not as much, but I'm now forcing my opponent to say, all right, yes, colossal retaliation is gone. But now the new pressure is, if you ignore my little minions who are able to functionally entrap you because of the plasticity to form their nice little web, you will not be able to attack me, the boss. And I have 2 or 3 barrier pieces in the back where I'm constantly, doing kung fu against, breaking them, slipping and sliding, creating more and more waves of monsters for this engage. You have a choice. You either, wipe out all the pogs and come fight me, or you can risk to come fight me or take out my other micro support, understanding that you're going to get overwhelmed eventually by these swarm of pogs. So, is WizKids capable of doing this? Yes. Is colossal retaliation needed? No. Is some way of re-looking at low point utility, midpoint functions, and high point functions have to be reevaluated in terms of point cost and efficiency and scaling? Yes. Yes, it does. And what type of colossal is this? Is this a big boss, I slug it out, I'm here type monster? Am I a lieutenant level monster, or am I fodder? Like one of my favorite, technically like lieutenant level monsters is Brimstone. Before the rules changes, he was dumb. He was grade A dumb. Okay, and he could do a lot of great stuff. Mind you, Justin Zephyr. But even without Justin Zephyr, there are a lot of cool things that Brimstone could do. And I know tons of people never played Brimstone, okay, as a actual like 150 point piece. But when you start looking at Brimstone as that type of, oh, let's go, he starts to throw down with some of the best of them. Is he invincible? No. Can he go down? Yes. But that's the point, is that the characters can die, but there is a struggle there. There is a, I picked this character over Cyclops because of this reason. I'm playing this field boss equivalent, knowing that I'm only going to get two piddly support guys over a full team of Avengers, decked out Avengers with gear and equipment. And part of me wanted to say when I was doing this, let's create colossal level equipment where it can't be used by standard characters, that it's balanced out for colossals. And I still sort of hold 50-50 and at best 60-40 pro for an idea like that, because it would create things, it would help give some life and utility to a lot of colossals independent of colossal retaliation. And you can even scale it by saying price range, point range between this and this point range, like we've done it with exospecs. Why the heck can't we do it with anything else? If you're just like, look, if you're on point range up to 300, you can like between 50 and 300, you can equip, the overcharge gauntlet, or the reactor, the mega reactor, or you can access, the Ragnarok blade, or whatever. It doesn't matter. There's enough big, huge weapons that giant robots, giant characters have wielded that you can use. Another good lieutenant level attacking character. I played him last weekend. Pissed off some people. Batman Superman robot at 150. Perfect. Didn't really need colossal retaliation. Perfect character to just battle it out. But a lot of people, they don't look at stuff like that. So going forward, can we live in a world without colossal retaliation with giant size figures? Yes. Does this require WizKids to reevaluate how they design colossal retaliation? Colossals? Yes. And I think the number one failing in the designing of colossals is they're picking the wrong periods of times for the characters. They're not looking at the roles for the characters. They're not looking at how they integrate into the game at higher point scales. And the stacking on of life in the increments in which they're doing is not in proportion to viability. It's just not. Just because I doubled the points, and then even if you gave me double the health, now I've doubled the health, does not mean that it's double the utility or it's just 2 times better. You've given me more restrictions and less backup. What stops me from playing things at low point? Which is, again, I feel one of the major problems WizKids, from a game design perspective, has not answered realistically is, why is the higher point versions of everything astronomically worse than the base low level? And I think that's a realistic question that WizKids shouldn't try to come out and say well, hey, that's not completely fair now. and just look at the history and body of work and say, all right, here's where I feel like we've knocked it out of the park. Here's where I think looking back, we failed. Where are we wrong? And I think that's where the community needs to come in and say, you're right here, you're wrong here. I think this needs to be looked at, and I think this needs to be looked at. For me personally, as it stands now, colossal size or any of the great size stuff does not need to be changed. None of that needs to be touched. I think that's perfect the way it is. Bravo, WizKids, we've arrived to the point where I can gloriously sing your praises on a game mechanic that I think is functional and balanced. Where we need to move forward is saying, like, in a world without retaliation, why am I buying a big booster? Why am I playing a multi-base figure beyond a peanut base? How are you going to encourage me to look at that figure in a 300-point modern setting? And how are you going to balance it so that your default isn't like it's Galactus is 300 points, whatever, go. It's, Zoran the Tester is 300 points, go. It's, Mistress Mold, whoever the freaking space satellite is, 300 points, go. Those are where I think that's the failing. I think it's better to say, all right, and even for some of them on the like in a D&D campaign, how do you look at the implication of introduce a larger threat, starting off without that threat utilizing everything, and so you could just say Master Mold, you can summon Master Mold on the field at 50 points. And then you can just sort of say, like, offshoot of Master Mold, pick a robot, or generate one sentinel. Roll a d6, 5 through 6, generate a sentinel. Okay, I'm paying 50 points for this. And this Master Mold head has 10 range outwit, 0 attack, 0 move, 20D or an 18D or something like that, and he's 40 points, or 50 points. He has an 18 or 19D, invincible, so you can't poison him. So it's protected poison. You can't outwit it, and he has a 10 range outwit, and he generates a sentinel. Boom! I'd play that. Roll a 5 or 6, and I generate a sentinel. And it just sits there. How much more useful is that than to Trask? That's a lot more useful. Could I still crank that character up to a higher point dial and be like, boom, I've introduced to you, Master Mode as weakened state. Boom, now I've introduced Master Mode as higher state. There's that. I also think the other major mistake WizKids has definitely done in shying away from, which I feel is a huge problem, is multi-point traits. The higher I move up, I should have access to more, not less. Stage 1, he's weak. If I pay 50-point Master Mode, I don't get the traits. I get this power and that's it. It's protected outwit, bam. Okay, move up to stage 2. What's stage 2? Okay, now I have trait 1. This is for 100 points for more. I move up to the next phase. Stage 3. So we can say stage 3. Then boom, I have access to these 2 traits. Then I go up to my final form. I have access to these 3 traits. Don't play this when you're on this dial, you get this trait, and then this other point gets this trait. And I can understand how confusing that is and why you would weed it out. But you need to come back and just say, look, I played this sucker at full points because at 800 points, I got multi-attack, I got sentinel generation, and I got immunity from pulse wave, psychic blast, exploit weakness, and outwit. That's what I got. And somebody be like, well, yeah, that's sort of worth it at 800 points. I can see, my dials increased just a bit, but I have more traits to make my dial more stout or more useful. You can even trade out like one of those traits to say, I roll a 5 or 6, I take no damage. Boom. You could give invincible in there. You can still have impervious in there. Oh, I roll for impervious. Okay, cool. I roll for my trait. Boom. Oh, you're psychic blasting me. Oh, I don't have immunity to psychic blast on this level trait, but I have my rollout. I'm gonna do my rollout. Okay, I hit my rollout. Great. So, like I said, there's some creativity issues. There's some design issues. I know some people say, but be honest to the character. Some characters just suck to suck. You know, but it still doesn't mean that you have to make them expensive. If they suck to suck, make them low point guys that don't do much, and you can make them unique. And then I can still have a utility for him and say like, well, that's a 40-point guy. He's not that great. He wasn't that great overall in the comic book, but I could put Billy Joe Bob in the corner and he can summon in 40-point colossal retaliators for me all day. Or sorry, in the world without colossal retaliators. I'm sorry, I apologize. I can utilize him as a tie-up piece, or I can have him as a prerequisite to some other character. I can use him as mastermind fodder, if I'm thinking along those lines. So there's a tons of things to have. So I know this is a longer show. I did a bit of Wim Hof breathing and some sleep and got some food in me. Intermittent fasting is kicking my butt just a bit. But I do encourage people, check out Wim Hof breathing. It's some good stuff. I've let a super secret out with that. Like Wim Hof is some good stuff. So that's it for today's show. You can follow me on Twitter. It came from outer space and told me that the galactic giants of Zirmnar 5 are about 10 stories tall, and they meditate and dust clouds roll in over them to strip off the bacteria off their bodies. That's how they bathe themselves. Pretty cool from what my Twitter tells me. You can follow me on Twitter to know when a new episode is out. I've been a little bit more active trying to make the Twitter work, so if you do not see the Twitter work, let me know. That lets me know that some of my auto update stuff isn't working, or when I actually said, press to tweet, that it did not send. You can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to opine, keep it interesting, keep it keep it pithy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Let me know what you think about my assessments in a comment below, or you can email me. You can also donate to the show by going over to startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com and donate directly to me. All right, that's it. I thank you all for listening to this more prolonged series. Probably put this out. Dial H will have probably hit 300 and be surpassing me. Those that hardly do work will always be outpaced by those constantly hustling. So big shout outs to them if they're listening. So that's it. Like always, we all have to start